Hey everyone, it's Zoe. Sorry the lighting is horrible. I have lots of lights on right now, but for some reason it's coming up really dark like my last video. Um, I thought I would do my labor and delivery story. Eli just fell asleep and I don't really have much to do until my boyfriend gets home from work. So I thought it'd be fun to share with you guys my labor and delivery story. So, I wrote it all down in my notebook, so I will kind of just read to you guys what all happened. So on September 18th, around 6 p.m., I went to the bathroom and I had lost my mucus plug and I had my bloody show that same day earlier in the morning. So on September 18th, earlier in the morning. And so I went to the bathroom and I went pee, and when I stood up, a whole bunch of liquid gushed out. And so I figured it was my water that had broke. And so, I was like, well, I had just gone to the bathroom. Maybe it was urine. Maybe it was, my water breaking. I wasn't too sure. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should go to the hospital or if I should just, wait it out and see if I start getting contractions. So I called my midwife, and they have someone, if it's at nighttime, that picks up and they page the midwife and let them know. So I called them, around 6 p.m. when this happened. I waited till 7. I still hadn't got a call back. So I called them again. She said, well, I paged her. She, the receptionist was really rude. And so she's like, well, I'll page her again. And so then, around that time, I started kind of getting more contractions, a little crampy, and, when your water breaks, you can get scared of it. I got scared that an infection could happen, so I was like, I really hope my midwife calls back soon. And by, 8 o'clock, they still hadn't called back. It had been 2 hours and no call back. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go to the hospital. I don't want to wait around anymore. This is ridiculous. So I went to the hospital, and this had been the third time in about 2 weeks that I had been in the hospital. The first time I was getting cramps, contraction type things, and I went in, I was having contractions, but I was at a 2, and still nothing really progressing while I was there, so they just sent me home. And then about a week later, I went in. I was having horrible back pain. I was still contracting, kind of here and there, not really consistent. I was still at a 2, so they sent me home. By this time, it was my third time going in, and I told them I thought my water had broke. And so they tested it with the strip, my urine, and no, my water had not broke. And by this point, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to have this baby. I am here for the third time now, and I'm still not progressing. I'm still at 2 centimeters. And so she said, well, what we'll do is we'll just hook you up for, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and see your contractions and see if you progress. And so I was having contractions for about every 6 to 7 minutes that were pretty intense. At that time, I thought they were intense anyway. And so after about 2 hours, they checked me again, and I was still at a 2. I was 2 centimeters and 90% effaced. And so they're like, well, you're not progressing still. We're sorry to do this to you, but we have to send you home. And just to put this in here, my midwife never got a page from the receptionist. Even though she said that she had paged her twice, she never did. So I thought that was highly unprofessional, but that's just a little rant there, because I was so pissed at the time. I was so livid. But so yeah, they decided to just send me home. They wanted me, they thought I was probably going to go into active labor within the next few days. So they're like, it's important that you get some sleep. So they gave me a shot of morphine, and they sent me home. Obviously that morphine made me pretty tired, so I got home around 11 or 12 p.m. It was pretty late. I think it was around 12 p.m. And I fell asleep right away. And in the middle of the night, I'd wake up really groggy because of the medicine, but I'd wake up really groggy and I would be having a horrible contraction. And so, but I was so out of it from the medicine that I was able to sleep, thank God. And so then around 7:30 a.m., I woke up to a horrible, horrible contraction. The worst I'd had since being, and I wasn't ever in active labor, but I was in the early stages of labor for about 2 weeks where I'd get contractions every once in a while. So throughout that whole time, that was the worst contraction I had had. And so I got up and I called my mom and I let her know, and I was like, well, I don't know if it's, if it's gonna be progressing me or not. By this point, I was like, I'm not going to the hospital again unless I am definitely in labor. And so I got into the bath, and oh my gosh, it made it so much worse. The bath actually just relaxed me enough where I think it made the contractions hurt even worse. And so they just kept getting worse and worse. I'd go to the bathroom and I was bleeding. I was having more of this bloody show, mucousy blood stuff that was a lot. And so I knew something was going on. And my mom's like, yeah, I think it's time. I'm going to call into work and we'll head over that way. And so my mom and sister got to my apartment. I was on the ball, and I was having contractions about every 3 to 4 minutes at this time. So my mom's like, well, let's try to walk. Get your jacket on. We'll go and try to walk and see if, by this point, 3 or 4 minutes apart is pretty close, but I did not want to go in until I knew for sure. So I tried to walk, and I could not even make it probably 50 feet without just bending over, almost screaming at this point. It was horrible. So I called my midwife, and they had known I'd been to the hospital quite a bit, so they're like, how about you stop at the office first, we'll check you and make sure that you are actually in active labor now, and then if so, we'll send you to the hospital. So I got to the midwife's, and she said, well, you are 4 centimeters and 90% effaced, and it's baby time. So you can head to the hospital. I'll meet you there, blah, blah, blah. So we got to the hospital around, I think it was probably around 11, somewhere around there. And, they just had me go in. They had me they hooked me up. I was having contractions at this point that were really, really bad. I was trying to walk, go on the ball, that type of stuff, but I was in a lot of pain. And so by 1:30 or 2, I was getting contractions every 2 to 3 minutes, and she checked me again. I was still at a 4, so I wasn't really progressing, mostly because I think I was just in so much pain that my body just wouldn't relax enough to progress and to have my cervix open up. And so around 3 o'clock, I decided to get some pain medicine. So they gave me some fentanyl, and that actually made things a lot worse for me. It made me tired and groggy, and it made the pain just more unbearable. And I was at this point, I was still at a 4. I'd been at a 4 for probably all morning, and since probably about 10, and at that point it was 3, so about 5 hours I was still at a 4. And so I was like, well, you know what, I'm in so much pain, please can I have that epidural? And so of course they said yeah. And so they gave me the epidural, and it made everything so great. It still gave me a little bit of pressure, but I was able to talk, smile, I just said that. I was able to talk, smile, just, it was still uncomfortable, but I wasn't in a lot of pain. And so around, I think it was probably around 5, she decided to check me again, and at this point, she broke my water, and I was at about a 7, and so I had progressed a lot during that time. And so I was just, I was relaxing, I was just playing it by ear, just waiting till I felt the need to push. And so all of a sudden, probably it was around 7 o'clock, I felt the need to push really bad, and I just felt a lot of pressure down there, kind of like I needed to poop. And so I told her that, and she said, well, that's probably the baby's head. And so she felt me, and she said, yep, I can feel the baby's head right there. It's your 100% effaced, you're 10 centimeters, and it is time to push. And so she got all the equipment ready, and around 7:20 I started to push, and I would get a contraction about every 2 minutes, and I would push, and I made really, really great progress. And within 10 minutes of pushing, I had Eli. I had Eli at 7:37 p.m. and he was 6 pounds 4 ounces and 20 inches long. And so he was just a little guy. He was so tiny. I definitely expected a bigger baby. So having such a small baby was kind of a surprise to me. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was the most pain I've ever been in my life, but I wouldn't have traded it for the world. At the end of it, I was just so happy to have my baby there. And I was so happy I got the epidural. I know every mom for themselves, but I would highly recommend an epidural. My body was just so tense that it wasn't allowing my cervix to open up. And so as soon as I had that epidural, within 2 or 3 hours, I was already 7, I was at a 4, and then all of a sudden I was at a 7 or 8. And so yeah, it helped me a lot. And so I would highly recommend that for any moms that are kind of contemplating, I think that's the word, contemplating whether they want an epidural or not. So yeah, that is my labor and delivery story. If you guys do have any questions, go ahead and ask, and I'll answer them to the best I possibly can. And then expect, I'm going to do a 2-month update on Eli, so I expect that soon. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Bye.